So I'd like to welcome Richard Wilkinson here, who's written a very interesting book called The Spirit Level about different levels of inequality, social inequality, income inequality, and the very far-reaching consequences that that has, especially for countries in Europe, which is of course very important for Greens. And I'd like to ask you now if you can just outline what some of those implications are of inequality and what it means for people.
Yes, well, what we've done is take measures of income differences between rich and poor in each of the rich developed countries and then related it to the scale of problems those societies have and how good their health is. And we find that life expectancy is lower in more unequal countries, mental health is worse, there's more violence, there are higher prison populations, there's more crime, there are more drug problems, kids do less well at school in these maths and literacy tests. It's a quite extraordinarily consistent picture. And we repeat all this work looking at the 50 American states and find just the same relationships there. The more unequal ones do worse on all these kinds of things.
Okay, and for you the overarching factor is this aspect of income inequality then? You don't think there's any other mitigating factors involved?
Well, all the outcomes are affected by a lot of other things, but inequality is a common factor. And we think that how it works is basically it damages the quality of social relationships and community life. People in more unequal societies trust each other less, they're less involved in community life. In a way, the intuition that I think people have had for centuries, that inequality is divisive and socially corrosive, what the data shows is that that's true, truer than we ever expected. But the other really interesting thing about this picture is that it's not just the poor who are affected by inequality. It seems as if the differences in how well or badly countries do is so large, and sometimes tenfold differences, for instance in the proportion of the population in prison or in teenage birth rates, because we're all affected by it. Even comfortably often well-educated middle-class people do better in a more equal society.
So for you it really makes a very profound difference to people on a psychological level as well as on a material level, does it? Yes,
I think it in more unequal societies there's more status competition, more status insecurity, and I think with bigger differences people judge each other more by status. You know, are you somebody I have to look up to and respect? Are you brilliant, or are you a failure? And we judge each other like that much more according to these status differences, and as they matter more in more unequal societies. I think all the fears about how you're seen and judged, threats to self-esteem, social status, those kinds of insecurities are worse in more unequal societies.
Okay. And we hear a lot in discussions about the economy about growth, and growth being a solution to the economic problems we've got at the moment. What do you think the role equality has to play versus growth? Is it something that should go together with it? Can it be a substitute for it?
Well, I think it's very clear that although it's economic growth that's transformed the quality of human life in the rich societies and is doing so in poorer countries, that in a way we've got to the end of those important benefits. For instance, improvements in health are now unrelated to economic growth in the rich world. Improvements in well-being or happiness, well, they're no longer improving, although our national incomes go on up. And it looks to me from the data that if we want to improve the real quality of our lives now, we must improve the quality of the, if you like, the social environment. And the exciting thing is, it looks as if we can do that by reducing the income differences between us. It improves the quality of the psychosocial quality of the whole society, making a pleasanter place to live. And we all know that the quality of social relationships, the social environment, is fundamental to what we feel about living in a society, whether it seems a friendly place, whether the community life is strong, or whether people just look after themselves and no interaction with others.
And so your advice to policymakers about what they can do to improve this differences, inequality in countries, what would that be, kind of briefly?
Well, there are two ways. Some societies become more equal by by high taxings and generous benefits. They redistribute to close the gap. But there are other societies, like Japan, for instance, and some of the American states we look at, which have smaller income differences before tax. And they do just as well. It looks to us as if it doesn't matter where your greater equality comes from. But I think actually the way of reducing income differences before tax is any way you can make people at the top of companies feel they have to account for themselves to the rest of the company. And I think that means employee representatives on the board, it means more cooperatives, more employee-owned companies. You must grow that sector of the economy. And I think that actually also transforms the experience of work. People say that an employee buyout can turn a company from being a piece of property. It's bizarre to think of a group of people, which is what a company is, belonging to shareholders. It turns it from being a piece of property into a community. And it also means the income differences are smaller within those companies. So I think we must grow that sector of the economy for all sorts of reasons.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. And also for people who don't make policy, who just would like to do something to change this situation, how can they get involved, or how can they find out more about it? You say
well, as well as our book, The Spirit Level, there's also a website called the Equality Trust. It's www.equalitytrust.org.uk. You can see a lot of the data there. You can find out about local groups, campaigning ideas, that kind of stuff. So do look it up.
Great. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.